Okay, so this is what my kits look like. I call this the Mix It Up necklace, and the reason is because I like to switch out my pendants. And these necklaces have these nice little hooks that let you squeeze and open them up and change them out. So if I don't want to wear this pendant, I can switch it out and put this one in. So that's why I call it the Mix It Up necklace. So what comes in the kit are a package of Lampwork beads, a large one, a couple smalls, and some spacer beads and end caps. This is a stacked washer with some enamel discs riveted to it. This is the chain and jump rings and the hook that you need for the attachment at the bottom of the necklace. And then we have these beaded connectors on the necklace, and that's what these beads are for. And I think that's what we're going to start with today, is making the beaded connectors. So I'm going to get my bead mat ready and string a 3-foot long thread of fire line. I'm using 8-pound. So I'll meet you back. Okay, so what you need to begin is the package of beads that's just seed beads and O-rings, check O's. I'm going to dump this packet out here. And what we're going to do to start is, there are 2 O-rings in there, one for each connector. So I'm going to start by stringing on one of those O-rings. And I'm just going to tie off the ends of the thread on the O-ring. And I'm going to leave, I don't know, maybe a 3 or 4 inch tail, because I'm going to want to weave that back in later, so you have to have enough room to do that. I'm just tying a regular old knot on there. So there's my O-ring with the knot, and I'm going to start picking up. My first row is going to be the green seed beads, so I'm picking up 2 greens. We're going to put these on with brick stitch. So I've picked up 2 of the green. These are 11 O's, and I'm going to come through the hole on the O bead from the back side, pull my thread, separate those a little bit, and I'm going to go back up through the last bead added, and that starts my row of brick stitch. Another thing I like to do is take the tail end and run it right up that first bead, and this makes that knot disappear into the bead, and now you don't see it anymore. It just makes it a little neater. So there, we've started the round, and I'm going to pick up now just one at a time and go through from the back side of the O bead, pull my thread, and go back up through the bottom of the bead just added, and then I just snug it up. And my camera is falling off the table. Okay, I'm going to pick up one more, do the same thing, back up through the one just added, snug it up. Just keep on going until we finish this round, picking up one at a time. Going through the O, going back up through the bottom of the bead just added. These little connectors, you can find so many uses for them. They make really cute earrings and, of course, great connectors. And you can play with all kinds of different colors of beads and sizes of beads. It's fun to mix up the, throw some shiny beads in with some matte beads. They're just fun to work with. So once you learn how to make these, you'll probably find yourself making them over and over again. Okay, I've come to the end of my round, and I've gotten that thread tangled up in there. Whoops. And I'm probably not going to be able to figure out how to get it out of there. I can't even see how it got tangled. Okay, well, what we want to do is meet up with the first bead in the round. So this is the last one we just added, and now we're going to go down through the first one, and then I like to go through the O and then back up through. That's the first bead we added right there, and that finishes the round. So that's how it looks with the round finished. I think that's 8 beads on there. Now for round 2, I'm going to use the little orange beads, the little delicas in this set. Your set might be different. I found that doing 3 rounds of 11 O's works out really nicely. But this set has delicas as the middle round. So I picked up 2, and I'm using the bridging string on the first round as my foundation. So there's the start of that row, and now I'm going to go one by one, and it's just like the last round, only instead of going through the O, the check O bead, you're going through the foundation string from the first round as your foundation for this one. And you just have to be a judge of whether you're going through the string that's on, you know, the right or the left side of the bead underneath. This time I don't think I have enough room, so I'm going to go under this string from the next bead. But it's a nice simple stitch, and it's a lot of fun to do. Great for a long car ride as long as there aren't a lot of bumps. Okay, I think I'm going to turn off the video, and I'll meet you back when I'm finishing this round, because it really is just the same thing all the way around. So I will meet you back here. Okay, I'm closing up to the end of this round, so I just wanted to show you. Sometimes it's a little hard to tell if you should add another bead or not. And really the most important thing, that gap I had looked like I could have fit 2 beads in there, but you really don't want to crowd these at all. So I am not going to add 2. I'm just going to finish with that 1, because when you crowd the beads, it just looks really bad. So don't be tempted to squeeze another bead in there. Alright, so there's the end of my second row, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 beads in that round. But it really doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that you space them evenly and you don't crowd that last round. Okay, so I'm starting a new round, so I'm going to pick up 2 of the white 11 O's. Now your kit might be a different color. But, oh, whoops, yeah. See how that foundation thread pulled away like that? If you find that happening, flip your piece and work in the other direction, because one way is the thread that's been worked for a while, so it's nice and tight, and the other one is the one you just ended, so it's loose and will pull out easily. So if you find that happening, flip your work and go in the other direction. So there's that round started, and now I'm just adding 1 more row of just simple brick stitch. So I think I will go ahead, and you can see how to do this. I'll meet you back when I'm at the end of this round. Okay, I am close to the end of this round, so I'm going to pick up 1 more of the 11 O's, and I'm going to go under that thread there to anchor it up through the bottom of that 11 O, and then I'm going to go down through the very first bead added in that row. I'm going to go between the 2 beads underneath so I can grab that foundation thread there, and then I'm going to come up through the last bead added. and that finishes the round. That's what that looks like. I'm going to see how many beads I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 beads. Okay, so that is an even number. So what I'm going to do now when we start the cube stacks is I'm going to straddle 2 of that row with every stack, and I'll show you what that means. But first I'm going to put away the extra beads. They're going to go to the second beaded connector. I'm just going to clean up here, and I'm going to get out my package of cube beads. It's got some seed beads and O beads in there. Okay, so this is the package we need for this step. Open it up and dump them out. Hope they don't go everywhere. Okay, so to start this round, we're going to do stacks. And they start with the O bead, so I get a check O on there, a cube, and then an 11O. And the very first one will get a jump ring. The jump ring is going to be the stop bead on this stack. So it's going to be the last thing on there. Oops. And the other thing is you want to make sure the jump ring is closed. I'm going to pop it off of there real quick and use a flat nose plier to make sure it's nice and closed. I'll show you this sideways. You can see that it doesn't quite meet up. I'm just going to squeeze it with the flat nose pliers. You can see it now so that the thread won't pop back out of there. Okay, so I'm going to snug all these beads up to the component. I'm going to go through that jump ring. And now I'm going to go back down through all the beads on the stack, but I'm going to skip that jump ring because that's going to act as my stop bead for this round. And now I'm not going to go back through the bead I came out of. I'm going to go back down in through the very next one because each one of these stacks is going to straddle 2 of the beads. So I'm going to tighten that down. And then I'm going to come up through the next seed bead in that round. So this one is straddling these 2. The thread came out of this bead, went up through the stack, through the hoop, and back down through that one. Alright, so now we're going to repeat that. Pick up a O and a cube and a seed bead, but we don't need a jump ring. The jump rings just go on the top and the bottom of these. So now this last seed bead is my stop bead, so I'm going to skip that, go back down through the other 2, and I'm going down through the next seed bead. Pull tight, and sometimes you have to pull on that seed bead, adjust the stack to where you want it, right in the middle, like that. I'm going to go out the next seed bead, pick up another stack. The other thing, sometimes these little cubes are a little wonky on one end. They'll not be cut exactly straight. So if you do have a wonky one, make sure you come up through the good side and out the wonky side. That way your bead won't point a funny direction if the cut is wrong. I don't see any particularly bad ones in here, but it does happen sometimes. Okay, so that's my stop bead. I'm going to skip it. I'm going back down through the other 2 and down in through the next seed bead. Now I can pull this to get it where I want. Oops. And now go out the next bead. Since we have 16 beads on here, we're going to have 8 stacks on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, Yeah, so the 5th stack will get the jump ring on the bottom, but we're not there yet. So I'll pick up another stack. Slide the beads down to the component, skip the seed bead, go down through those two and pick up the next bead in the row. And then what I'm doing is just pulling this bead out so that I get the stack centered on those 2 beads, and then I tighten it up. Okay, so we're entering the 6th bead, or the 5th stack. So I'm going to add a jump ring to this one. I'm picking up the O, the cube, the seed bead. Maybe. All right, it's being ornery. And now I need a jump ring on this one. So there's my, oops, I need to close up that jump ring. So I'm going to grab it with the flat nose plier and squeeze it. That didn't work out too well. I'll try again. Okay, you can see that's nice and closed. I'm going to add the jump ring. And that is my stop bead, so I don't want to go back down through that. I want to go down through just the beads and into the next seed bead in that round. So now you can see we have the top and the bottom on the connector. I want to make sure these are centered on those 2 beads, so I'm going to pull this out, move my stack to where I want it, and then pull down. That's better. Go out the next bead. And just continue on doing the stacks. Now, if you add up your beads and you find that you have a different number than I did, I think I had 16 total, so that was an even number, so everyone's going to straddle one. Hopefully you end with something that's either even or divisible by 3. I like, when I have a number that's divisible by 3, then what I do is do one stack that straddles, one stack that's stationary. It goes in and out of one bead. And then I do a stack that's straddled and then a stationary. That's the spacing on those works out nicely too. What does not work out so nicely is if you have an odd number of beads that's not divisible by 3, and then sometimes you get a little bit of crowding, but what you want is an even number of stacks so that your top and bottom are opposite each other. It's a little more work to figure it out if it doesn't, if it's not divisible by 3 or if it's not even. So I'm just going to keep going adding the stacks, and I'll meet you back when I'm adding this last stack. Okay, so I just added my last stack on this round, and now what I want to do is go back through all of these the stacks a second time. And you maybe want to go through the stack with the jump rings on it a few times just to reinforce that, because that's the stack that's going to take the weight of the necklace that you're making. So this one I've come up through the beads and it's through the jump ring already, so I want to come back down this side, skipping that jump ring, and into the second seed bead in the stack. So that's 2 times through. I like to go through at least 3 or 4 times, so I'm going to come over this one, just going back a bead so I can go back up through that stack again. Okay, so I came up through the cube. I haven't been through the seed bead yet, so I need to get under that bead. And it's being a little stubborn. Okay. Through the seed bead. Now I'm going to go across the jump ring and back down. So that's the third time through on that, and it was getting a little tight, so I'm going to stop there. Now I'm going to go through all the rest of these, and I'm going to do the same thing at this bottom one. I'm going to go in and out 2 or 3 times in order to reinforce that. It's easier to do the ones where there's no jump ring. I think I want to come out the second bead in that stack so that my thread only has to cross 1 bead instead of 2. Sometimes you can wind up seeing the threads if you have to skip along here to get to where you're going. Excuse me. Okay. So I'm going through that one. I haven't been through the stop bead yet, so I'm going to go through the stop bead and then back down and into the next bead over, up through this one. Okay, I went through the cube, so I haven't been through the seed bead yet, the little stop bead, so I'm going across the stop bead and then back down into the next bead over. And now I'm going to reinforce the other side of the connector. Really, it's these sets that are the most important. Okay, so I've gone through this bead, the O bead, the cube bead, the stop bead, and the jump ring, all in one fell swoop. So now I'm going to flip it over, and I have to make sure to skip that jump ring going back down through. Oops. Okay. And I want to come out the second bead. Okay, so that's twice through that end. I'm going to come over, go through again. Okay, that time I went through all the beads, but not the jump ring. So I need to go through the jump ring, and now I can go back down through skipping the jump ring, and that's 3 times through that stack. Okay, so this whole side's been reinforced, the 2 ends have been reinforced. Now I just need to reinforce these remaining 3. So I'll do that, I'll meet you back, and then we're going to weave in the ends. Okay, I'm just coming through my last bead to be reinforced, my last stack, and my camera's falling off the table again. Okay, now what I want to do is weave my way down to the beginning thread. You can see that's coming out right there. So I'm going to go through the delica row, the little orange bead, through to the little green bead. And now I'm at a point where I can tie off, oops, these 2 threads. So I'm going to tie a knot. Okay, and now I'm going to take the thread that my needle's on, and I'm just going to weave my way back through a few beads, going through the green, the orange, and the white there. And then I'm going to come back down the next row. Basically, I'm just weaving the tail in a little bit so I can cut the thread and not cut it right next to the knot. And I think that's going to tangle things up right there, which is not what I want to do. Okay, so I'm going to cut off the thread that I'm working with, and then I'm going to rethread the needle with the other end. Okay, that end is done. Now I need to weave this end in a little bit. This fishing thread is not flat, so I find that if I run my nail against it, it flattens it out, makes it a little easier to thread. Probably could have mentioned that at the beginning. Alright, so I could have left myself a longer thread to weave back in, but oh well. Alright, so I'm looking to see where that thread comes out, and that's where I'm going to weave back in. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go back up this one because the other one seemed a little tight. You want to make sure you don't try too hard to go through some of these beads that have a lot of thread going in and out. The ones on these ends, you've gone through more times than the other ones, so it's usually a better choice to avoid those and use a different set to weave the ends in because they're already a little crowded. I think I'm just going to go up a couple more beads and then cut it off. Okay, that's it. Now you just have to do one more just like that, but look how cute these are. These you can turn them into earrings or you can use them for connectors. I'm sure you can find a lot of different uses for them, but I just think they're kind of fun. I have a thing for washers and gears, and I think I like the square beads because it kind of echoes the steampunkiness of the washers and things. So, okay, make another one of those, and then we'll move on to the Lampwork connectors. I'll be right back. Okay, for this part of the project, you're going to need the little bag that has the lampwork beads and the spacers in it. So dump that out. You're also going to need your jewelry tools. I've got flush cutters, round nose pliers, and flat nose pliers here. And you'll need the wire that's in the kit. Now this is a pretty heavy piece of wire I have right now. I think most of the kits are going to have something a little thinner. This is probably 16 gauge, and I think I would do this either in a 20 or 18 gauge, but regardless, this will work. So what your first thing you want to do is, these are the end cap. I make these into end caps for the Lampwork, but you kind of have to bend the ends down in order to get them to snug up next to the beads. So I'm bending these so the little round things will be up. They're going to be like this on the bead. So you want them to be nice and tight up against the bead, so I'm just pushing them down. I don't know, I might do this ahead of time and put them in the kits already pre-bent. They come bent the other direction, and so I've flattened them out to begin with, but anyway, you're just going to bend these rounded ends down around the bead so they'll snug up against it. I'm just bending them all upward. Whoops, where did it go? I've got all those ends bending up. Okay, so I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to put on a spacer and then a end cap facing the bead, And you can see it's not really tight enough yet. You don't want these ends to be so loose that they're going to snag your clothes. So you're going to want to tighten these up a little. Bend them in more. Now they're nice and tight up against the bead. You can see that. Okay. So I'm going to grab another one, put it on the other end of the bead, and again, tighten it up. So I'm pulling it back and I'm pinching it to make those little tines go down nice and tight against the bead. And you can see that it's kind of grabbing that bead like little pinchers. That's what you want. Now I'll add another spacer. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is take the round nose pliers and I'm going to leave about an inch of wire from where I start bending, because I'm going to use that to wrap around the stem when I'm done. So I'm coming back here and you can see I've got marks on my plier at the midway point. That's the size loop I like to do on these. If you want a bigger loop, you're going to work back here. If you want a smaller loop, you can work out here, but I like the middle of my pliers. So I'm just rolling back nice and tight up against the plier until I've gone, you can see I've gone around once. Now I'm going to let go. I'm going to grab the other direction. Oops. Let's see if I can get this where you can see on camera. It does not want to focus there. Okay. So what I'm going to do is bend back the other direction. Okay, so what I have is a loop on top of the stem, if you can see that. Now I'm going to grab this with my flat nose pliers and hold on there, and I'm going to wrap this tail around the stem, and I think I'll go around twice. Why not? I've got the wire here. This is pretty stiff. It's pretty hard wire to deal with. I think in the kits I'm going to put something a little smaller so it's easier. I did not. Okay. And now I need to trim this end off here. I covered that end with my thumb because sometimes that wire will go shooting off across the room. So there's one end wrapped and done. Now I'm going to come over here, and right next to this I'm going to make a 90-degree bend downward. You can see that. Now I'm going to start my loop right here, and I'm going to walk the plier backward till I have a loop. See if I can show you that on camera. There's my loop. It's coming back around. And now I'm going to wrap that stem, oops, with the wire. Maybe I'm going to have to do this again so that you can see. And now I'm going to trim this wire off. And it's a little wonky. I want these to be kind of on the same plane. So I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to flatten that back out. And you can see this loop is leaning this direction. So I'm going to come back in here and fix that. Now it's kind of standing on top of the bead. And this one is leaning this direction. So I'm going to come back in with the round nose plier, and I'm going to bend that the other direction. Now you can see the loops are standing on top of the bead. Now this one's bent a little backward. There it is, done. So you need 2 little ones like this. Don't do the big one yet because that's a little special. So you can do the second one of these and I'll meet you back. Okay, we're ready to do the larger bead. It starts out the same way as the others. You need to bend these little end caps back so they'll fit onto the larger bead. Just bending all their ends down. Okay, and now we're going to take the wire, add a spacer bead, an end cap, the large bead, end cap, and a spacer bead. And you can see I need to continue to smoosh down my little end cap because it's not meeting up very nicely with that large bead. So I'm taking it back, just pinching it closed a little bit more, rolling it to pinch the ends. And I'm going to do that with the other end too. Pinching them in. Okay, now you can see that they're grabbing onto that bead pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to do a loop on one end of this bead. This loop is going to get connected to the disc stack, wherever it might be. One end is going to connect to the hook, and the other end is going to connect to the stacked washer. And I don't know where that is, so I'll be back. Okay, so for this one, this is the end we're going to connect to this washer stack here. So we're going to need a little bigger loop on the end. So I'm going to start with a good inch and a half of tail on there, and I'm going to walk back a bigger loop. So I'm working further, I'm working past that. Dang it. So you can see I have a big loop on here, and I'm going to use my round nose pliers to straighten that up so it's kind of standing on top of the wire. So now that I've got that done, I'm going to open it up sideways. I'm going to use the flat nose plier and just twist a little bit to get an opening there. And now I'm going to slide on that big washer. And that's why you needed the bigger loop there. You don't want to be, you want your washer to be able to move freely inside there. If we had a smaller loop, it would get stuck and jam up. So now you can grab across the two rings with your flat nose plier and wrap around the stem with that tail. You can go around once or twice, it doesn't matter. I think I'm going to do twice. Oops. And now I'm going to trim off that end. Putting my thumb over that so it won't shoot anywhere. Okay. What did I do? Okay, so on the necklace it's going to sit this direction. The washer stack is up, and what's going to be on the other end is the hook. So I'm going to start by grabbing this wire right up above the spacer bead. I'm going to make sure everything is pushed down all the way. Then I'm going to take the wire and make a 90-degree bend around the washer, or around the round nose plier. So you can see there's my bend. And now I'm going to grab the wire back here, and I'm going to roll backwards. I'm making a loop that's going to stand up on top of that turn that I just made. Now you can see I'm almost there, so I need to take this wire and come down across the bottom. Now I've completed that loop. Now again, we need to open this up a little bit sideways. Actually, that's probably open far enough to be able to slide this on. So what you want to do is put this chain on here about midway. So I'm just going through a loop that's halfway down that chain and sliding it in there. So this is what it's going to look like. Got the hook on the bottom and the washer on the top, and that's the part of the necklace there. So now I'm going to grab across this loop with my round nose pliers so that I can wrap that stem. I'm going backwards, around, wrapping around that stem. And I think I'll go around it twice. So that's what I did on the bottom. And then trim it off. Okay, that's what we've got. Okay, we are ready to assemble this necklace. What you need is the hook portion that we built, the 2 lampwork connectors and the 2 seed bead connectors, and then we need the bag of chain and jump rings. So the first thing we want to do is open one of the jump rings, and the way you do this, grab onto it with your hands on one side and the plier on the other, and just twist it sideways. That opens it up. You can use the round nose pliers if your fingers can't take that by grasping like that and turning. So we've opened up the jump ring, and what we want to do is connect. You can see we want to go not exactly opposite where this large lampwork connector is, but we want to get one jump ring in this one and one in this one. So it's the 2 holes that are just next to the one that's opposite. So we're going to go through that hole and connect the end of the chain. There's a large chain that's about 20 inches long in the packet. So this one gets one side of that chain, then we close that jump ring off. Open a second jump ring, use the pliers if you need to. Okay, so this one goes into this hole. And it gets connected to the other end of that chain. I'm probably making you dizzy, sorry. Now I'm going to close that up. So what we have is the long length of chain, like that, connected into that connector. Now, what we're going to do is take our cutters and we're going to cut both of those chains off up about 1 inch. I suppose I could probably measure, but as long as you do them equally on each side, it's fine. So there's one cut, and there's the other cut. Now we're going to open 2 more jump rings. I'm going to connect through one side and through one of the beaded connectors through its jump ring. Another jump ring. Do the same thing to the other side. Through the other beaded connector. Okay, so we have the 2 beaded connectors on there. Now we're going to open another jump ring, go through the other side of the beaded connector and into the chain, close the jump ring. Do the same thing with the other one. Open that jump ring, go through the beaded connector and the end of the chain. Close it off. Okay, now that's what we have. Now we're going to measure off, we're going to eyeball another inch. And the only thing that matters is we do it the same on both sides. So that's about an inch right there. Oops. Snip that. Snip that. Now I'm opening a couple more jump rings. And you can probably guess. And go through that chain, through a lampwork connector, close it off, do the same thing on the other side, open the jump ring, through that little short chain, through a lampwork connector, and now we're going to do jump rings through the lampwork connectors and the remaining chain. What I like about these is they can go over your head without having to deal with a lobster clasp or anything. They're nice and long. So that's what we've got, and you can try it on. If you decide it's too long, just cut some chain off of one side, but this will all be even. So you just want to adjust over here or over here to make it shorter if you would like. But that's all there is to it. Hope you enjoyed the project. Hope you enjoy swapping out pendants. This one goes nice with this, or these little components. Just hook it on there. What I like about these is they look nice if they flip over. They have a fun washer on the back there. That's what you need to look for in pendants to wear with these, because they're so nice and they're so long. They flip over easily, so whatever you hang from that, you want to make sure that it looks good from both sides. So nice big lamp work or whatever you want to put on there. But that's it for that project. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.